Welcome back to the Boys in Motion. I'm Andrew here with Tyler and Brian, and today we're diving into a topic that's been exploding lately, especially in the Boys in Motion community, and that is ultra marathons. Yep, running beyond that coveted marathon distance, running further than most people drive to work, running through snowstorms, forests, overnight darkness sometimes you need that headlamp, and oftentimes for absolutely no reason other than it's pretty fun. So we're going to talk about what makes running ultramarathons so appealing for those people that are sick in the head enough that want to go further than that marathon, and why a lot of runners, including us, keep getting sucked into that world of running that ultramarathon.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, you're right. Some people have sick in the head hepatitis, that's for sure. Ultra marathons are becoming just more and more popular and very fast growing in this world of endurance sports, you could call it. You know, they push you physically, mentally, and emotionally in ways that those usual races don't. And I mean, like, as you guys know, this weekend in Ottawa is going to get real freaky real quick with the Ottawa crew with doing this ultra.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about this. But yeah, my first experience with an ultra, my first and I think only, was not even an official race. It was just coming to pace Andrew for him doing his 100K around Niagara. It was just us deciding to run farther than any sensible person should. There were no aid stations. I think we had one car meetup. We had no medals, no crowds, just vibes and a bit of snow and lots of bad decisions. But honestly, it felt great. It was one of the most fun, ridiculous endurance days that I've ever had. Started in the morning and ended in the dark. And that's the magic of the ultras. They're messy, super unpredictable, and I gotta say they're a little bit addictive. So I'm not surprised to see you guys, always going back for more.
Yeah, and normally we put this disclaimer at the end of the episode, but I think we should put it at the beginning because we absolutely are not experts on this, because we all have ran an ultra marathon, but none of us have actually done an official ultra marathon. Maybe that will be in the cards for us in the future, maybe near future, who knows. But maybe let's start with, for those that aren't familiar with what this crazy thing is and they only know the 5K marathon, let's talk about what exactly an ultramarathon is. And to put it very simply, it's anything over 42.2 kilometers. So if you sprint past the finish line on your marathon to get that 42.3, technically you're an ultramarathoner.
I like the sound of that. I guess I've done a few then in my books based on my Garmin. Yeah, I mean, you said it pretty straight up there. Anything over marathon, so the classic distances is they round it up to 50K, 50 miles. You could go up to 100K, 100 mile, or even those wild North American cross continent runs, 200, 300 miles sometimes.
Yeah, it's cool when it's kind of like those big, long races. But what I also love about the Ultra is that they can have different setups as well, where you're doing like a loop every hour, which I would also qualify as an ultra marathon, where maybe every hour you're running 4 miles, 7K, whatever it might be, and you just do it hour after hour after hour through day and night, and you just whittle down the field ever so slightly every single round. It's crazy. It definitely takes a different kind of mentality and maybe maturity in the sport to start tackling those ultras, because a marathon is already so difficult, but an ultra is a different kind of beast. Sure, maybe you don't need to race every single one and you can just go out and run the distance, but doing one fast still boggles my mind. I don't know how anybody does it.
Yeah, and I think like the running scene in general has, I think, grown so much since COVID, but I think in recent years, ultra marathons specifically, and I think this is big time, like UTMB, Western States, Hard Rock. I think there's a couple big ones, just similar to like the World Marathon Majors, that really you see the athletes, that those big professional athletes like the Walmsley, the Courtney DeWalters, those big names. And I think people are really just like flocking to doing ultras as opposed to things more on the road. And it's kind of a different feel and atmosphere to those road racers, where the road racers, as we often are very, data focused, wearing our short shorts, we're there on the lines. You see in all the race pictures, you're ready to click start and finish as you pass. Where the ultra scene just feels a little bit more laid back. You're there having an all-you-can-eat buffet at aid stations, and just it's a different vibe. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't wait for that scene. So yeah, spoiler, I guess I signed up for an official one this summer. So yeah, some of the freaky boys here in Ottawa have gotten me the bug to do an ultra and ultimately train for this ultra. I think will be the funnest part of this new season coming up. But yeah, like you said, those aid stations are definitely different. The paces are different, and also the vibes and the spectators I could see are a lot different than your typical road race, right?
Yeah, and that's I think the biggest thing for me when we start talking about ultras, it's versus a road race is these are sort of like massive cross country hike, power hike, so many different variables at play relative to a very controlled road race. I think that's one of the things that is appealing to a lot of people is just the diversity of experiences, paths you might take, views you might have, and probably mental states that you'll go through as well while you're conquering an ultra. It's just really, really cool and a nice alternative to road racing, which can be very competitive against other people and yourself. Being able to do that ultra, and I feel it with like the conversations that we're in, Tyler, and the things that you're doing even in the next week, where they're very collaborative in their approach, right? Ultras, you often hear people like bringing a crew to an ultra, having that like actual support from other people, whereas for a race, when you're talking a road race, it seems to be very different in that aspect.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think also, like, just like you said, the dynamic of the race, and if you're going out with friends at a race, let's call it, you could start together, but you never know what's going to happen throughout the race. You could be, I think it's more precision when you're racing. You could be like, hey, a couple seconds off per kilometer, and that's a big difference. But let's say you're in an ultra and your buddy's hurting, and you're there to do it with them, and you're kind of doing it as a group adventure as well. You could afford, let's call it, to slow down those extra couple seconds here and there just to make it more enjoyable for both of you. So again, like, you're making it that longer journey, that experience with everybody, have that crew out with you, and just try to bring each other past the finish line, not just yourself with your own goal. That could also be a thing. I want to finish in X amount of hours, but also helping your, let's call it, team get across that finish line.
And I think lastly, and I feel like this is one of the most important reasons why ultras are so important, is just, I think as humans, we love big numbers, and 42.2 just isn't quite big enough. And it's just the double it and pass it to the next of, oh, I've done a 50K. Now let's do a 50 miler. Done a 50 miler. All right, 100K. And you just keep going further and further, which is beautiful, is crazy, but it definitely takes a slightly deranged person to get into ultras, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it definitely takes unique individuals, and I think you see that as well in like the community. The ultra marathoners are very different. I think they have far lower ego than maybe road racers do, and the people who are at like the competitive edge of the marathon, the 5K, and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm sure there's also those characters in ultras, but from what I've seen, it's a far more like community driven, supportive crew, which is so nice to see. But I do think that it takes kind of a special person, because and I didn't really experience this in the 50K that I ran when Andrew did his 100, but I feel like there's a mental journey in an ultra marathon where like you can ebb and flow in like feeling great, feeling terrible, being in an absolute brain fog moment that road racing and distances under the marathon don't actually have. You either kind of feel good and then you start to feel shit and you feel shit for the whole rest of the time, whereas an ultra you can sort of like ebb and flow throughout the race, which is really really unique. Andrew, you have run the longest race of pretty much anybody I know. Have you had those ebbs and flows throughout an ultra?
I definitely had some ebbs and flows. It was nice and flat and not super long, just 100K. In the world of ultras, that's just a baby. But yeah, you definitely like compared to the shorter races, you definitely have some times where mentally you're a bit low. You start, thinking I'm tired and how do I push past this? And then the energy will just kind of come back, whether that's from chatting with people, nutrition kind of catching up with you, because that's kind of something that can happen in ultras a lot more, where you have time to kind of digest and get that energy back. So it is definitely very different. And where, in a marathon, if you're starting to hit the wall, basically it's you're gonna fall off the cliff, and there's no real coming off the cliff. But that's the beauty with the ultra, is you have so much time that you can go down, but then you have to come back up to the peak, or hopefully that's at least what we all hope.
Yeah, it is crazy just like yeah, how different that is from the experiences that I've had in racing, and how appealing that is as well. Because I mean, part of the reason we do this is to be in those pain caves, but re-emerging on the other side in the same activity is something that is super special. So really, really cool. Tyler, gotta ask, you're running one this weekend. Can you share a little bit of the details about it, what you're most excited for, what you're nervous about? Because I feel like a lot of people maybe have flirted with the idea of doing their first ultra, but here you are like committing to a very difficult run.
Yeah, no, exactly. I guess excited slash nervous. More excited on the fact that it'll be with friends. I know it'll be somewhat, let's call it, fun and enjoyable for the most part. Just a little, I guess, nervous because, as you Strava investigators could probably imagine, I have been running about 10 kilometers a week for the past month at least. So this will at least 5 or 6 times my weekly volume. Actually, it probably in one run would probably pass my monthly volume. So that'll be very interesting. But I know I'm in good hands with the Bonkosaurus Rex and a couple of the boys out there. So it'll be fun. I think we're still actually just trying to sort out some logistics because we realized it is getting very cold very quickly here in Ottawa, Gatineau area, and we're getting a lot of snow recently. So that'll just make it, that much more challenging with the weather conditions and even the ski conditions. So we're actually looking at trying not to impede too many of the ski trails up there. So we're actually aiming, I think, towards a looped course. So you mentioned it earlier. We're not really going to do that backyard ultra style, but kind of taking a page out of that book. And we're going to do a 10 to 15K loop 5 or 6 times, basically, close to Mustafa's house. And we'll have his house act like a home base. So, come back after the loop, warm up a little bit if we need to, change your socks, have our food there, extra water, instead of, just logistically a lot harder in the winter, especially to have drop bags or have people waiting for you at certain points in the trail, because we were going to do this as a trail ultra. So yeah, very excited. We have Charlie, Kyle, Mustafa, me, and I think Alex, 5 of us possibly joining that ultra. So that'll be this Sunday on the 15th? 14th, the 14th. So yeah, 14th of December. It's gonna be a doozy out there. And yeah, let's just hope the legs stay on the track and keep moving left and right.
Love it. Yeah, that sounds so nice. So nice to do the distance, do something pretty hard, meaningful, but also do with friends. Would love to know, kind of going into it, you've done one, 150K, but kind of going into this one, what are kind of the main things you're thinking about to make sure that you come out of it on the other end still in one piece?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of that this past weekend, and I'll be honing in a little bit more on my game plan this week for sure. But I think mainly take it slow. If I think it's slow, it's probably not slow enough. So a difference between this one, I guess, and the bootleg one we kind of did was this one will have a lot more elevation. So we were either looking at, I think, almost 1,500 meters elevation throughout the loop, or I think it was 5 or 6 times the smaller loop at 350 meters. So still about 1,200 meters elevation. So that's a very big difference. So yeah, like I guess keep it slow. Obviously, make sure I have traction. It's not a race out there. We're just there to have fun and keep on top of nutrition. I guess a little bit, out of sync with that gut training and nutrition compared to peak season fitness, let's call it. But I haven't forgotten how to eat, so I already stocked up on my favorite candies. So definitely have some Morton drink mix on tap, ready to go, and some of my favorite Gatorade flavors. So I mean, I'm ready to go, and I'm hoping to get around 80 to 90 grams of carbs per hour in me. And again, we slightly mentioned it at the beginning, but sometimes even some more of those unconventional carb methods I'm very excited to try as well.
One thing that I discovered when we did the 100K is I gave myself lots of variety at the aid stations that I created for myself. And I think that was key of normally when you're doing a run that's a reasonable distance, you can kind of expect what you're going to want at a certain point. But when you go past those 50K, 100K, or like 50-mile distances, I feel like what you want changes. So having variety to pick and choose in the moment and having sweet and salty options, I found was super nice. And that I wasn't reaching for the things I was normally reaching for during my marathon long runs.
Yeah, that is a good point. I'm definitely taking a note of that and going to bring some different options for the crew. And even I think what's fun too as a group is Mustafa is let's call it an ultra veteran, and he's done a lot in the past. So he kind of will also have a little bit, I'll be leaning towards some of his tips and tricks as well for getting through some of these aid stations. And I'm excited to try out some of his freaky methods.
Yeah, Mustafa's a madman, and you do see like the people who start the ultras really get hooked on doing and exploring these crazy distances. And I think that's one thing that's really appealing about it is like, yeah, they're hard days, but like Mustafa, like, and you are going to be able to succeed, and you just kind of like will scale your pace and your effort to the day to whatever you can do. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be tough, but it's also going to be accomplished, barring like an injury or something like more severe. But you can kind of get through anything. And I think that's one of the beauties of the ultra is like once you start, you realize just how much you can actually go through. Like if I were talking to myself 3 years ago, there's a 0% chance that I would be thinking now like, oh, going out and running 50K isn't like extremely difficult. Like if you don't have like a goal pace in mind, of course you could just like go out and run the distance or like continue walking the distance, whatever it might be. But that's when you've already broken your brain as an endurance athlete, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You said it perfectly. I think it's like at first I was nervous because I'm so used to that racing mentality, and even for those triathlons I've been doing, and it's like obviously it's three sports, it's a lot different, but it's just I'm in the race mindset. This is more like, hey, we're going on an adventure. Like, sorry, go as hard as my body will let me, and just go for the fun of it and have some fun with it, and just already in that chasing that next goal. And I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to talk nutrition because you kind of did talk about it, and this is one of the things that I think is so cool. Is like in a marathon, you're probably just going to be drilling gels because you don't want to eat. You're not going to like sit down. You're not going to get a massage halfway through. But the aid stations can be super different in an ultra. Like people are sitting down in a lawn chair, especially if you're having those like ones that are repeated hour intervals and that sort of thing. But oftentimes the food that you can get, and I know at UTMB, like the food that you could get is super diverse. They'll have fruit, they'll have like pizza, they'll have just like random snacks that you wouldn't maybe think of. And it's just awesome. I think that is a really cool feature of ultra distances versus, quick as you're sprinting, grab a cup of water and a gel at a road race. What are you looking forward to eating this weekend, Ty?
Oh, I have some the classic Haribo's on my list right now, and I also have, of course, the some of the cis beta fuels. I know those are sometimes good to, like you said, the conventional gel sometimes here and there, and when I'm actually hopefully running some of the race or some of the ultra run, that I will be taking those in. But another good thing too is, like you said, you could eat some of those more non-conventional items to carb up and to salt up actually as well, because you're not going sometimes as fast. And even if you grab it from the aid station and you're on your way already, you could be walking while you're doing this. But maybe we'll have some pizza ordered for lunch, or I'm definitely going to bring some croissants, some cookies. I got the sweet tooth, so I think I'll still stay with the sweets, but I'll have to have some of those salty buttery snacks with me as well. I know a big thing that's popular. I was just trying to pull up there's a menu for aid stations at ultras, which I find hilarious. They're like, oh, this is a hot station, you got to make it to this next hot station to get your bowl of soup or whatever. But another very popular thing would be sushi. A lot of people have sushi at aid stations, and yeah, there's really, you can't go wrong with that either.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when we were talking about like making your own rice bars, Andrew mentioned like onigiri would be so good, which like 100% true. And I'm just thinking for you on a cold, snowy weekend out there in the Gatineau Hills, having like a nice bowl of hot ramen would just be the most delicious, salty thing ever on a cold day of trail running. But you might pay for that on the first ascent or descent as you bail it down a mountainside. It might be coming up the other way, which wouldn't be so good.
I mean, I might bring some just in case. And maybe those late miles, anything goes at that point. You're just trying to get it done.
I mean, you mentioned snow, and what I think would be perfect for a Quebec Ultra would have to have a tir station on your loops. Just have a bank of snow, have someone there just boil in the maple syrup, and then just quick tir on the stick, and then just lollipop every loop.
That would be so
I mean,
elite.
that's a great idea. I got the pen out. I'm writing all these ideas down. Let's go.
One thing I'm curious about, and this might depend on whether you're doing loop or no loop, but I know that all these things you're talking about will definitely not fit in your pair of 2-inch split shorts. So tell me about how you're carrying all of this nutrition, all of the hydration that you need for such a long distance.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was one of the important factors when we're looking at this loop or not idea. We were going to have drop cars at different locations and have X set of water within that drop car, or also some more nutrition, things like that, clothes as well. But I think due to the temperature, it's going to get quite cold out there. We're I think really leaning towards the looped course. So yeah, again, I think we're going to have each of us, we did talk about it a little bit, we'll have some trail vests on. I have just a wind shell, like a windbreaker with plenty of pockets. I know that's the jacket I did our bootleg 50K. Andrew, you did the 50K in that, and I found a lot of room, just trying to fit some things in those pockets. Now, and also with the ultra vest, with the trail vest, it'll be a lot of room for different types of gear as well, because we're thinking of bringing crampons as well, just in case of the high, like the peaks going up or down. We'll need a little bit more traction on those trail shoes. I think we're gonna go against poles. I don't think we're gonna have hiking poles, because we're going in loop in an area where Mustafa is quite familiar with, so I think we're okay there. But yeah, just make sure to have at least, I think we're gonna have about, if we're doing the looped course, two soft flasks on us each. Mustafa is real MVP. He's bringing emergency blankets, so we're staying safe out there. We'll have some first aid kits as well on us, and also hand warmers, hand and feet warmers. I did buy some of those just in case we need that extra little bit of heat or if we caught a little bit of a chill mid run.
Yeah, that's smart. And it definitely requires a ton of different gear. Like you say, of course, to deal with the conditions in winter is one thing. But like generally, trail running, there's like just more gear than your regular racing because you're out there for way longer. So you mentioned a few. If you were to rank sort of like the top five things that you're bringing that you wouldn't bring on like your average 10K, what would those be?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And yeah, we could talk about ultras in general. And actually, I just pulled up there's a mandatory gear list for the UTMB race I'm doing in Mont Tremblant. And like just to show, this is a 50K. I'm saying just a 50K, but this is the shortest distance of the weekend. And you still have, I'm thinking, I'm just looking quick, a good 10 to 12 items on the mandatory gear list. So, some of those items that you won't run a regular run in would be, like I was saying, a thermal blanket, just in case something tragic happens, to literally stay survival and in case until someone shows up. Also, there is a whistle, which is interesting, in case you're stuck in the woods or there is something around you that you just need to get shooed away. Whistle, definitely I wouldn't be bringing on a normal run. Headlamp, depending on the temperature and the time of year, you need to stay visible and also be seen and also be able to see things around you. And there's also a mandatory, either you need your phone with you or a GPS tracker to be traceable and also know where you're going. So I think that's another key thing, running in the city or just going on your usual run. Sometimes, I don't bring my phone or I know where I'm going and I know I'll be back within an hour or so. So you tell someone and you come back, of course. But yeah, on a trail ultra, on a run or even a training run, some of these training runs could last 30, 40, sometimes even 50K. And you want to be prepared with proper tracker in case you have to be picked up along the way.
Yeah, that's crazy, and it like that adds to costs and complexity, right? It's definitely a lot more. A lot of that is for safety, which totally makes sense, especially when you're on the trails, like the GPS, for example, or at least having a phone, minimum requirement versus like on a road race. Typically, I don't want that. Just stay as light as possible, as free as possible. So yeah, interesting to know. Andrew, what about yourself? If you were heading out the door running your first 100, let's say, what are some key things you'd bring?
I think the main one, and this was from our Ultra, is same on that safety. I think when you're going along, safety becomes more important, and that is visibility of both being seen and seeing. So that's headlamps with potentially backup batteries, depending on kind of knowing how much time you'll be doing in the either before light or after light. And then also reflective gear. If you're in the case of being more trails, maybe that's not as important. But if you're doing a more urban option, definitely that reflective gear is super, super important. And the other one, and this was another learning from my Ultra, our Ultra, is reliable gear that hopefully won't fail on you. Because what I had was two really old soft flasks that when I bit into them, I had the nozzle of the soft flask fly off, and then half of a soft flask blasted onto my face on the parkway going to Fort Erie, and then my glasses froze with DIY Morton, and then I had to deal with that the rest of the day. So good, reliable gear that hopefully won't fail on you, because it matters a bit more when the race is long.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, having the right gear and stuff is gonna like live for the whole duration of the event is critical. I mean, luckily where we were running, there's enough support. You can run to a shop, you can do that sort of thing. But sometimes people are like far out where, you're not going to hit an aid station for a dozen kilometers or even more sometimes. Now, we're talking a lot of like winter prep specifically, but given that people might be listening to this, before next summer if they're doing an ultra, the other thing that I would say is, yeah, winter gear, critical, but summer gear, just as critical. Making sure that you have protection from the sun, sunscreen, all of that sort of stuff when you're out there for that long. Like, of course, nutrition, hydration, that's a given, but being able to have like actual coverage, if you're running in a desert for 10 hours, 12 hours, or even longer, you definitely need to be mindful of like how you're protecting yourself from UV and everything else that comes with that. Yeah, it's spooky being out there for that long and just being at like the will of nature. I know, like, even if you're running like in BC and you're doing trail stuff, you got to have your bear spray on you. So you just definitely need to be prepared to be independent for, yeah, anything that comes your way during an ultra.
See, what's crazy is you say these crazy circumstances, and it's just like music to my ears. I'm like, this is crazy. I want to try it. Running in the sand. Also, you would need some gaiters. You get some crazy friction in the shoes if you're running in sand, or you have some grit on your feet. That's another big issue I find with some people running those wild sand ultras. But I mean, like you're saying, Brian, just those different circumstances, it's just like, a new challenge, a new tick on the belt. And I think that's kind of the interest in trail running and ultra running is just like, honestly, there's no limitations, right? Like, you could go up a mountain, you could go downhill, you could have most extreme conditions one way or another, you could go very far, you could try to go fast. It's up to what you want to get into on that given day.
For sure. And there's going to be a lot that's thrown at you. One thing that's interesting that came up when we were researching this topic is foot care. Specifically, it's one of the unsexy parts of ultra running. And yeah, like, I've gotten it a ton while hiking. You hear those tips of like, you don't want to just like go out on the trail in your new hiking boots for the first time ever. I think there's a lot of parallels with ultra running. You want those shoes to be nicely worn in, but maybe not too worn in. And there's other tips that I've heard about, like how you can just handle that foot care a little bit better during an ultra. So I want to kick it to you, Andrew. We're going to keep leaning on it. You've done the longest run out of any of us. How were the dogs after that run?
The dogs weren't too bad, but one tip that I got from some, ultra runners that I follow is to actually lube up the dogs. So go to each individual dog and lube them up, dip them in that Vaseline tub or the pesto tub that Tyler likes so much to carry around with his Vaseline. He's got it right there, of course. So yeah, Tyler, just dip each dog in and you should be good to go. But the other thing is having, depending how long, maybe an extra set of socks or multiple sets, especially if it's super hot, you're sweating a lot, or it's cold and wet and your feet are getting wet, and other shoe options. At a certain point, you might just be like, I want either maybe a shoe size up, so whatever size you wear, maybe a half size up after your feet start swelling, or maybe at a certain point you're just like, I don't like the way these shoes feel, either give me another pair or something a little bit different, which is very unique to ultras for sure, that swap in shoes mid race.
Yeah, I'm so glad, like, when I ran the 50K alongside you, I think it was like we were kind of halfway through, maybe like at the 26K mark. And even I switched shoes there, and it was so nice to do. Not even that the feet were necessarily complaining so much, but it was really just like the fact that it was nice to have a little bit of a different feel in the foot, the muscles moving a little differently, the foot placed a little bit differently on each step, and a little bit different drop between, the toes and the heel. So I think, that kind of tip is really good, especially if you're running through creeks and you have the risk of getting wet feet during a race. being able to swap out at an aid station for a nice dry pair would be awesome. And I think for a lot of races, you can actually look at the course and you might know, talk to people who have maybe done that course before, who have scoped out those trails, because you might know like where are the places that you're at high risk of getting real wet feet, and then you can plan for a shoe swap after that, just thinking a little bit tactically.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely be dabbling, I think, into a shoe swap, definitely some sock swaps, and possibly even, full changes, especially for doing those loops. Just want to stay dry out there, want to stay warm. And again, I think the gear is very important in ultras, no matter what conditions you do them in. So even the warm weather, you're trying to, I think you don't want to be salty all day long. You're going to try to get some fresh either socks on you, even sometimes a shirt, just anything to make you a little bit more comfortable will definitely help.
Yeah,
You don't want to be
100%.
salty. What do you mean? That's just free electrolytes. You gotta brush that off the skin and put that in the pool
And
water
just
tub.
just give it a lick.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'm sure there's a few people who are listening to this episode who maybe didn't think they'd ever do an ultra. Maybe they're interested now, but they're kind of right on the fence, just teetering. So, why do you guys love ultras? Like, what is it that has you either coming back for more, planning these? Like, what is that itch that it sort of is able to, yeah, relieve?
Yeah, I'll start it off, and it's the classic Type 2 fun. Ultra, but Ultra is just the epitome of Type 2 fun, of just you do it, afterwards you can talk about this crazy accomplishment, have such good memories, talk about all the fun times you had. It was the best thing ever, but during it, you're probably suffering. You're like, when is this going to be over? I don't want to run again. But once the dust settles of that ultra, the memories are just so good. And yeah, there's very few things I think that can create that same thing than going along. So yeah, you got to go long.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think I'm just trying to get into this new, let's call it new venture. And I think it's, some of the same reasons that type 2 fun. I want to feel, the emotional highs and lows that come with it, even more than, let's call it, Ironman training and racing Ironmans. I think it's just a whole different ball game as to, mental toughness and also physical, of course, because it's a crazy accomplishment. But I think I think you dig a little bit in most cases, and some cases a lot deeper on the mental side of things. So I think I just want to open that up and explore that a little more. And again, it's a little bit more of a collaborative approach, I find. So I think, not racing alone and training with people, I think will be a good breath of fresh air. Even though, we train together and with friends throughout the year, I think having a common goal to doing it with certain people will help with the training and also keep you motivated and keep that flame alive.
For sure. And yeah, if you want to go long, go together. That's what they say. And that's definitely true with ultras. It's definitely got that community vibe. I mean, it happens to us. We get fished into, or we get roped into doing all these races, like road races, through people like Kennedy or Mark or whoever's chiming into our inbox saying, "Hey, come run with me." But I think ultras are nice because you oftentimes end up running alongside people. You can have those conversations mid-run. You can push each other throughout the run. Somebody's usually feeling like garbage. Somebody else is able to kind of keep the troop alive and motivated. But I think that the thing that is most beautiful is the feeling of finishing an ultra versus finishing like a marathon or a half or a 5K, whatever. Oftentimes you're on death's door crossing the finish line of a fast road race, and an ultra, it really kind of like overwhelms you emotionally, not so much always going to be like, yeah, like you're on death's door because you just sprinted the last, 5K. It can be a very different, fulfilling feeling. And I think that's something to chase, to experience if you haven't done it before. Now, of course, if you're going out and you're racing an ultra properly, you'll probably have that same feeling. of like finishing a marathon, but I think finishing an ultra with a group is a great running experience. And I think it's like one of those core, like if you could only do 10 things and accomplish 10 things as a runner, I would say running an ultra marathon with a group of friends would be one of those 10 things to do.
Yeah, that's actually interesting how you say that. I do agree. I think that would be kind of one of those items you got to tick. If you're running, get to that distance comfortably. Again, doesn't have, I know we didn't talk much about paces today, but it doesn't have to be fast. That's, I think, the mindset I'm going, especially with mine this weekend, is just keep it nice and slow and steady, more like an adventure than anything. And like you said, just take that off of the list of the must have experiences while running.
Now, while we're on this topic, I want to give a couple picks that I think are pretty relevant to this topic for our listeners. And we'll see if you guys have any picks or things that you guys have had on the mind, even if it's unrelated. But my first pick is, if you're wanting some motivation or some wacky ultra insight, the Some Work All Play podcast by David and Megan Roche is a very good podcast. David Roche and Megan are both like super acclaimed ultra runners, very fast, and they definitely do some wacky ultra experimentation, and they're very, very enthusiastic on their podcast. So if you're wanting to get hyped to get into ultra running or geek out about it, I would recommend that podcast. And my second pick is a song that I've been quite obsessed with for the past week. And that's by one of my favorite artists, Bahamas, who is a Toronto native. And it's a song called Ready for a New Thing. And if you want to listen to it, I would recommend watching the music video. And I think if you're on the fence about doing something crazy, doing something new in the endurance world, watch this video, and I guarantee you will say yes after you watch it.
Oh, frig, yeah, those are great picks. I'm going to have to tune into that podcast. I haven't heard of them yet, but always looking for a next podcast for either some long runs that I don't do or my drives home. And then that song from Bahamas. I mean, I texted you, Andrew. You sent it to me, and I said, I don't know if this guy is a seasoned runner or a seasoned musician. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil the rest of the music video. But yeah, great music video, quite funky song. I do like that. For me, I'll have to, now we're throwing in picks, I'll have to go with the classic for me. Again, throwing it back to my triathlon roots, the TTL Nation. Eric is a freaky ultra runner, and he's getting, I guess he has done a full season really ultra running, and has been doing very well in those distances, the 50Ks, the 50 milers. So I do like listening to the race recaps and some of his prep that has to do with some fast ultra running.
Yeah, and I'm going to toss one more name in there, and I'm going to keep it in Canada, and I'm going to go with Ryan Keeping. He was the ultra runner. I think he's in Halifax. He ran the distance of Canada over 100 days. So about 70, or maybe it was 75 days, and he did 100K a day. Something like that. Anyways, absolute deviant guy, like absolute crazy. He recently ran all of Iceland, I think.
That's exactly what I was just going to say.
All of Ring Road. Not sure if
he got
that record,
world
but he
record.
Probably did, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's always putting out cool runs, doing cool stuff, and somebody to follow. He'll keep you, he'll make sure that you're always flipping the switch and staying on.
Big shout out. Yeah, he's freaky, man.
Yeah. He's cool to follow, and it's awesome to see some of the cool stuff he does. And he's a big fan of Terry Fox, Canadian hero, greatest Canadian of all time. Somebody that I think, if you don't know a lot about Terry Fox, look him up, watch some vids, and just get inspired.
Yeah, he was in Ottawa the other week, and I didn't even go see him. I felt bad. Saw him running down the canal on Instagram, and I was about to go see him, but I'm a no runner these days. I've been tapering for my ultra. So
that's true. You're tapering for life. You wouldn't risk putting a few extra miles in those feet. You're saving them all for this weekend.
No. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've went long enough for today. I think we can maybe wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us, diving into the weird and wonderful world of ultra running.
Hell yeah. If you enjoyed this one, make sure you follow us on our Instagram and other socials. Join our Strava club and share this episode with someone who's been maybe flirting with the idea of running an ultra one day.
And of course, our quick reminder that we're not medical professionals. Always train smart, listen to your body, talk to experts, and well, talk to us too. Let us know what you're doing. But definitely talk to an expert before you try to run the distance of a country or something crazy like that.
I kind of want to try.
So as always, keep it moving, boys and girls, and remember, the longer the run, the better the story.
Stay hard.